I will call the regular meeting of the Oak Ridge City Council for May to order. We appreciate everyone being in attendance tonight and those that are joining us electronically. It's a special evening in many respects. And to get started, let me introduce Christine Rader, who is the Director of Youth Faith Formation of Oak Ridge Unitarian Universalist Church, who will present our invocation. She will be followed by Nevaeh Catron from Robertsville Middle School, who will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please stand?
Our invocation for tonight is an adaptation of the words by John Saxon. Holy One, known by many names and beyond all names, we ask your blessings on the people who've been called to lead the community in which we live, work, and play. Help us as leaders not to ask first, how do we fix this? But what do we need to learn? How might we need to change? And to whom do we need to listen? Remind us, because we all forget from time to time, especially in the noisiness of what passes for political debate today, that we are not only leaders, but also servants, and that this is our responsibility and ours to serve the common good of all. Remind us, no matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor, our sibling, and that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the strangers and the immigrants in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, and those who are forgotten. Grant us the wisdom and the courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May we speak with conviction and compassion when it is time to speak, and may we listen with patience and receptivity when it is time to listen. May we be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and true and right. May we be so.
Amen. Nevaeh?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having me. Now please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Dotson.
Here.
Councilmember Gleason.
Here.
Mayor Gooch.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Hensley.
Here.
Councilmember Hope.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into our other regular business, I want to call Oak Ridge High School Principal Drayton Hawkins and our new Oak Ridge High School football coach, Derek Rang, up. This will be their first attendance at the City Council meeting. And gentlemen, we don't want you to be strangers. We're glad you're here. So Principal Hawkins, if you'd bring the coach up, and we'd love to hear from you.
Do I need to face the audience or talk to you?
You can talk to me. Coach, you can take your hat off.
All
All right. Good evening, everyone. Excited to be here tonight. Excited to serve this year as the principal of Oak Ridge High School. This is my second year here. I was assistant principal last year and afforded the opportunity to lead such a prestigious high school this year. So it's been a great school year. We've done a lot of things, and so tonight I want to introduce to the community who I think is one of the finest football coaches that we could have found in the state of Tennessee. All that I have heard about this gentleman has been positive. What I have seen myself has been positive. And so, you know, not to put any pressure on him, but this is the gentleman.
No. You're here to put pressure on him.
I just said it like this, so I've already put the pressure on him. But this is the gentleman that is going to lead Oak Ridge to the next football state championship. So, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Derek Wright.
You're up, Coach.
Yeah, I guess.
And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know he's come straight from a coaching clinic, so we appreciate him.
No, we've been on the field doing some work with the young kids, with the Boys and Girls Club. So appreciate you guys having me. Coach Derek Ring. I guess coached in East Tennessee, coached in West Tennessee, coached in Mississippi for a year. So have a wide range of coaching experience across both parts of the state, another state, and I guess been fortunate enough to be spend 9 years as a head football coach and been successful. We've actually won a state championship as a head coach, and every school we've been at, we've made runs to win championships. And I think number one, kind of being a Maryville alum, just from the academic standpoint of Oak Ridge schools, really attracted me. Obviously, the great football tradition and great athletic tradition in general. And we're just here to move that forward, like Drayton was saying, and see if we can have a lot of success on and off the field. So, I'll be actually moved into the community full time in the summer. So hopefully you'll see me around different events, and we can talk a little ball, and hopefully we'll see you guys at Blankenship on Friday night in the fall.
And Coach, before you leave, tell them what you're going to be teaching.
Oh, I'm so math certified 7 through 12, and I'll be doing Algebra 1 next year at the high school. And actually right now been helping out with Algebra 1 since March 1st. So it's been fun to see the school side of it, and obviously, Mr. Hawkins does a phenomenal job leading the school and making sure the kids are up to the standards of Oak Ridge City Schools. So that's been fun.
I got one more thing to ask you. Coach Joe Gaddis would have been here, but he's over at Bobby Hopkins as the Wildcat baseball team hopefully finishes off the Infidels from Powell.
Oh, yeah.
And we will win our first district baseball championship in many years. So, gentlemen, we hope that you will at least make an appearance over there and celebrate the victory. And with all due respect to our friends in Powell, they know.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
So I want you all in the community to know that this was not the only gentleman that we talked to. We talked to probably 50-something coaches all across the state of Tennessee, coaches from Alabama, coaches from South Carolina. So this is a gentleman that was selected out of a pool of about 50-something applicants. So just want you to know that we searched high and low, and Coach Gaddis gets the most credit for that because he conducted an extensive search process. So, and we landed Coach Ring. So just want to make sure that everyone knew that.
Thank you.
Coach, roll Wildcat.
It's roll. Don't be strangers. Don't be strangers. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation recognizing Dr. Mark Watson for his years of service as Oak Ridge City Manager.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the resolution?
Whereas Dr. Mark Watson has served as the city manager of the city of Oak Ridge since 2010 and is retiring on May 5th, 2023. And whereas Dr. Watson is a second-generation city manager with a 47-year career as a public servant, having served as city manager for not only Oak Ridge, but also 6 prior cities in Texas, Montana, and Arizona. And whereas in 2019, Dr. Watson graduated from the University of Tennessee with a PhD in political science with emphasis on public administration and public policy after receiving a bachelor's in English and a master's in public administration from the University of Kansas. And whereas in 2017, Dr. Watson was recognized by the International City County Management Association for his public service career, which spans over 4 decades. And in 2018, he received the Community Partnership Award from the International City County Management Association Association for his efforts in developing a public-private partnership for the redevelopment of the American Museum of Science and Energy and reuse of the existing site. And whereas in 2022, Dr. Watson received the L.P. Cookingham Award for Career Development from the International City County Management Association, which recognizes an outstanding local government administrator who has made a significant contribution to the career development of new talent in professional local government management. And whereas Dr. Watson was recently recognized by the University of Kansas with a Lifetime Achievement Award in City Management, and the University of Tennessee with the award MPPA Fellow in Professional Practice for his immense contributions to the education and professional development of MPPA students. And whereas Dr. Watson has positively influenced the career paths of over 24 interns and assistants since beginning his career in local government in 1981, and has shared his knowledge with students and young professionals from around the world, including teaching 40 students about local government in Beijing, China in 2018. And whereas Dr. Watson has been married to his wife Jenna for 44 years this August, and they are the proud parents to 4 children and grandparents to 5 grandchildren. And whereas the City of Oak Ridge congratulates Dr. Watson on the occasion of his retirement and thanks him for his years of devoted service to Oak Ridge and its citizens. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that in recognition of his distinguished service to the Oak Ridge community, the City of Oak Ridge hereby recognizes Dr. Mark Watson.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. There are none opposed. And I know that there are going to be members that want to speak, but let me first say, ladies and gentlemen, from east to west, north to south in this city, anywhere you go, you can see the developments, the progress that the city is making, has made under the leadership of Mark Watson. He is not only respected here in the city and in East Tennessee, but literally across the country in many different venues, many different areas. And it has been my privilege to work with him closely since I was elected to council and elected mayor back in 2014. And so, Mark, we know you are taking some well-deserved time off. You're not going to be gone too long. Jenna, and please convey our appreciation not only for you, but the rest of your family for sharing Mark Watson with the citizens of Oak Ridge and indeed East Tennessee, and making it a better place for all of us to live. And we appreciate you all very much. And I'm going to ask Mr. Jack Suggs if he will present the proclamation on behalf of the council, and I think he probably will have a few words to say. And then I'll call on the members of the council.
Come up here, Mark, we'll give it to you. You can't just sit there.
Hey, it was a unanimous vote.
It was unanimous. So on behalf of the city, we have a couple of things for you today. The first is proclamation signed by all members of council, which expresses the words that were just read by the city clerk. In general, thank you very much for your years of service and for the work that was done. And then, because we don't ever have enough, we produced for you a plaque which has a key to the city on it. As people have said before, the key to the city is a symbolic gesture which is given to people who have earned the trust of the citizenship, who literally should be able to go through any door, because when they go in, they make things better. And I can't think of a better person than you to give that to. So congratulations.
Thank you, Jack.
Very much. And I believe that perhaps Councilman Dotson has one more item. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right, and let me step aside.
So I know how much Jenna enjoys art, being a fellow art teacher, but I also know how much Mark Watson enjoys art, and also how much he loves the city of Oak Ridge. So I know you sometimes walk down by Melton Lake like I do. I thought I would present you with a photograph of Melton Lake on one of its nicest days in the fall. And I'd like to congratulate him on so many years of service to the city of Oak Ridge, but more importantly, he's a good friend. Get my artist up here.
Absolutely.
The way you put up with enough to make this happen.
And I'm going to start on my right. Councilman Hammond, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, just as I was stating when we were down there, really appreciate the work that you've done with myself, a number of different things I could speak to, but I will be intentional about speaking to the work that you've enabled me to do with the community, whether that was not just getting the pre-K over in Scarborough and it's part of those and navigating those conversations, but also making sure that we made good as a city on the park that was back there, and then also making good on the development of the park right next to the Scarborough Community Center, which had been a promise that the citizens there in the community had been looking for just a while. That also navigating the Black Lives Matter march that we were able to do, and then getting all of the resources of the city aligning with that so that we were actually able to have a peaceful protest, if you will, and a demonstration in that particular space. The list goes on and on and on and on, but I do want to say thank you so much, because a number of the things that we were able to do was because you fully supported that. And that's up to and even including the housing conversations that we're having even now. And so I just want to thank you for all of the ways that you enabled me and empowered me and the council to support the underrepresented citizens of Oak Ridge. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Well, it's hard to believe it's been almost 13 years. In 2010, we had good fortune, and whatever wind blew you our way here in Oak Ridge. And I look back, it's been one day at a time with all manner of things going on, and you've juggled a lot of balls in the air, and it's amazing to think of the many accomplishments that we've seen in this community over those years. After years of being in the doldrums, we got the senior center built, we got the preschool built, we wrestled with the golf course, and lo and behold, it's doing really well now. We've had issues with different subparts of the government needing help, encouragement, whatever, and things have worked out in those areas. We've got retail in the center of town. The list goes on, and we've been very fortunate to have you here, and wish you the best in your retirement.
Mr. Hope.
We go back all the way. I became a city council member about the same time you became city manager. It's been a long road, and I'd echo what the fellow council members have said. One of the things I like about it most, Mark, is whenever somebody brought to you, hey, we've been putting this off and putting this off, it's time to make it happen. And time again, you found ways to make the process happen, get the process going from a stagnant moment on to a finish line. Pre-K and senior center are just two of the things that I'd say are big accomplishments of your career here. The one thing I wish that I had tonight was a pair of scissors so we could actually cut that tie about right here, and you don't have to wear a tie anymore. You're retired. I mean, you're out. I believe in no wearing ties anyways, but I mean, to take it off, I mean, that's a big accomplishment.
They're all going to be at the Carm store.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, Mark, just again, thank you for your service. Thank you for your friendship. I was a really green individual when I came on the council, and your leadership helped me, guide me, and allowed me to mature into this position. I really appreciate that, and most of all, I appreciate our friendship.
Mr. Hensley.
Yeah, I was on the city manager's selection committee when we hired you, and there were several qualified candidates, and I will say that I supported you from the day you walked in the door, and I'm very proud of that. I think that we've had our minor differences, and we've agreed many times, but we've always been able to be friends. And I really regret that I missed 6 years in between to work with you. But God bless you and safe travels.
Mr. Gleason.
Mark, you and I didn't get much time together at all, and I think we discussed this over my really embarrassing pancakes at IHOP. Lesson learned. Anything you order there is going to come with a lot of fruit and whipped cream on top. Mark won't let me forget it. But you had me in a constant state of indoctrination, and it was interesting because after 12 years of service, you would still call up until late last week in the evenings to make sure that I was up to speed on a topic that needed to be discussed the next day. So it was never really a job for you, I don't think. I think it was a lifestyle. So certainly appreciate that dedication to the city, and look forward to buying you some embarrassing pancakes and getting some more background on some stuff moving forward. Enjoy your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Mr. Dobson, final word.
I don't know how to say this, but, you know, all the people in the audience, people listening on TV, we as city council, we actually can channel the will of the citizens, but we channel that through you. I don't know of a time when I've picked up the phone, texted you, emailed you, and you not responded immediately. And that is one thing that I think the city of Oak Ridge needs to know, that you were always there, and you stood by us, and you helped us through a lot of difficult situations. You know, the pandemic was a huge, difficult situation for many of us, and you guided us through that with grace. And I wanted to thank you for everything that you've done, and also for your friendship, Mark.
Mr. Watson, you have the floor.
Well, it's real hard to point out to things, but little did I know that in 1963, my father and mother and I stopped to visit with Carlton McMullen, the first city manager of Oak Ridge, and spent the night there with him. He's a classmate of my father's. Little did I know that in 2010, I would come back to Oak Ridge. And as I did as a successor, we've come a long way with economics and innovation, inclusion, and community progress. And I just listed a couple things that I was thankful for during all this. First off, I was thankful for the support and leadership of the council as a group, not individuals, as a group. And you were able to guide us through that. You saved millions of dollars, and you've accomplished countless aspects of community building. I also was blessed with a very professional city workforce, that we trained well, that responded well. You got some of the best trained officials to provide city services that are around, and I hope you'll take care of them as they continue to move toward retirement. I think also that one thing that former Mayor Behan had talked to me about was the relationships, and we really concentrated on relationships with the surrounding counties and the region, and I think we have a strong reputation in the region now, and with the leadership of Mayor Gooch, we can talk to anybody, anywhere, one end of the state to the other. We also have I think that as I look at a willingness to try new developments and be creative and innovative, we have been able to do that in this organization. And innovation creates new things to happen across the community. We share those ideas. Those awards come because of innovation and ability to do that. I think also we have brought the community together different types of the community, rich and poor, and east side, west side, and it's been great to see the pride come back to our community. I think also that I'm thankful for this partner over my shoulder here, Jenna. She kept me on an even path as we went through ups and downs and calls in the middle of the night and so forth. And she started out right there at the Cedar Hill Playground and has continued to serve through Altrusa and literacy projects throughout the community. So we were part of the community. Finally, I just recognize that the key building blocks of a great city are here in Oak Ridge, and those seeds were planted years ago and will enable a bright future. There's a number of seeds that are planted out there. They're just yet to grow, and I think you'll see those in coming days and coming years. So keep charging ahead, and I'll be watching you from the sidelines and supporting and looking to great days ahead. Thank you. All my staff, thank you also.
Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating May 15th through 21st, 2023 as Police Week and May 15th, 2023 as Police Memorial Day.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. I'm going to ask Councilman Gleason to present the proclamation to Chief Smith, and we certainly want to invite the community to the memorial event on May the 18th at 10 o'clock. Next proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating April 30th through May 6th, 2023 as Municipal Clerks Week.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas the office of Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants. And whereas the Office of Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be forever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. And whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center of functions of local government and community. And whereas the professional municipal clerk continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office through participation in education, programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that April 30th through May the 6th be recognized as Professional Municipal Clerks Week in the City of Oak Ridge, and appreciation be extended to the City Clerk, Beth Hickman, and her assistant, Valerie Emery, for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the Oak Ridge community. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and caused the great seal of the City of Oak Ridge to be affixed this 8th day of May in the year 2023. And I'm going to ask Ms. Smith if she would present the proclamation to Ms. Hickman. And the vow. Next, proclamation, Madam Clerk.
A proclamation designating May 21st through 27th, 2023 as Public Works Week.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Mr. Hope, if you would please present the proclamation to Mr. Berg.
Come on down here, guys. Please, at least be recognized. If you don't want to come down here, be recognized. It really says it right here in the proclamation. The health, safety, and comfort of our community depends greatly on their services. We cannot run a city and operate as a city without the men and women in the Public Works Department. They run everything from all things that you don't think about that makes it seamless for us to do in our community. And for me and from the rest of our council members, we greatly appreciate your service that you do to our city. Thank you very much.
And gentlemen, if you would please tell your colleagues that we not only salute you, but we salute them, and we thank you for your dedicated service to this city. Thank you, gentlemen. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
We have the consent agenda.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? There are none. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
I wasn't ready for that. I'm not used to that, just going right through there. Okay. All right. Under public hearings and first reading of ordinances, you have an ordinance to amend ordinance number 2 titled the zoning ordinance of the city of Oak Ridge, Tennessee by amending Article 2 titled titled definitions to add definitions for food truck and food truck park by creating a new section 3.38 titled Food Truck Parks to establish regulations for permanent food truck parks, by amending section 7.03 titled B2 General Business Districts, section 7.04 titled UB2 Unified General Business Districts, and section B3 titled Roadside Business Districts to add food truck parks as an allowed principal use, and by amending section 7.02 titled B1 Neighborhood Business Districts and section 8.01 titled IND1 Industrial Districts to add food truck parks as an allowed use with special exception granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and the public hearing will be held on second reading.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Williams, if you have any comments.
Mr. Blasius says.
Okay, all right. Mr. Blasius, go right ahead.
I snuck out, but I snuck back in.
All right, that's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Just a couple of clarifications on this, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But because this sort of activity, these food truck parks, it's kind of similar to a food court, but outdoors, is a fairly new phenomenon in our community or in our area. We don't have any in Oak Ridge, but people have asked about them. As you well know, in some of the surrounding communities, there are these type of facilities. So this is about a permanent food truck park, not a pop-up event, not something like Secret City Festival or the food truck rally that we had for a while down off Wilson Street, but rather a permanent facility that has accommodations for food trucks and a place for people to gather, restrooms, etc. I guess somewhat in parallel, the legal department is working on further regulation for food trucks themselves, but this is about the place, not the trucks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Smith.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea, valuable, and I don't have problems with the specifics of the proposed criteria in the ordinance, but I was concerned by several of the items in the ordinance. It appears to me that items B, D, and E are not really zoning requirements, but rather something that would be in a standard municipal ordinance. And so like having designated manager is not a zoning item. That's in item B, for example. And having waste receptacles emptied frequently is not a it's not something that we normally would have as a zoning requirement. That's not land use. And so it would seem to me that those items in whole or in part ought to be part of the companion municipal ordinance, but not necessarily part of the zoning ordinance. And I first got this kind of inspiration when years ago I dealt with complaints that there were people riding motorized motorcycles in green belts, which violates the zoning ordinance. But the police can't stop somebody for violating a zoning ordinance. That's not a municipal ordinance. That's a land use requirement. So that didn't belong and still doesn't belong really in the zoning ordinance. And similarly, I think that these provisions really ought to be separated out in the municipal ordinance. And I'm curious to hear what the thinking was in putting them into this ordinance instead.
I might ask Tammy also to opine, but we have other ordinances where things like caretakers are included in the zoning ordinance. Ms. Williams is here, who primarily wrote this ordinance for our staff, and I'm happy for her to chime in also. But I think your point is well made, but I don't know the appropriate place to put these, and so if we could look at that between now and second reading and come back having conferred, or if Ms. Rackard or Ms. Williams want to add anything right now, I'm happy for them to. But I think in some of the industrial zones, don't we have caretaker?
Well, those are provisions allowing a caretaker, basically residence for a caretaker as part of the zone. So that's a land use item. It's not a requirement that you have a manager on site at an industrial site, for example. It's a provision allowing a particular residential use associated with that kind of land use. And so it seems to me that these are important rules, but they're really not zoning. There's something else. They're regulations of one form or another that continue in the future. They're not a decision on what use is appropriate for the land.
We can certainly incorporate those into the city code version of the food truck ordinance. That is to address the permit process, and we're sort of waiting to see, each year there's legislation proposed about food truck permits. So we're sort of waiting to have seen what happened, with that before we move forward with ours. But we can pull those out and put them in, and maybe if you move, sort of depends on how quick we are on the process. We could move forward with keeping them in here and then remove them once they're in the city code.
Yeah, ideally, I'd like us to consider both the ordinance and the zoning ordinance together.
Yes, I would have to.
As companion items rather than separate items.
But at the time we were moving forward with this one, while we still were waiting on legislation at the state level, and this one was ready, and we have a citizen that is interested in developing a food truck park. So we wanted to go ahead and move forward with this one as soon as it was complete.
And related question, do food trucks require a city business license?
I don't believe they do, but I can double check that with the business office and email you tomorrow.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks.
Mr. Hensley.
Yeah, I tend to I see a little more of this because I was in the Planning Commission and we had some serious long debates about this, and I understand why it's here and not in the ordinance, because this defines a site that would permit a food truck park. For instance, Weigel's, for instance, has a manager on site, has hard brick restrooms, and so it would be permitted to have a food truck park in the Weigel's parking lot. And so I can't see, but if you took just a site that was permitted for food truck parks without requiring the restrictions on porta potties and hard restrooms, it would be very difficult, because if you go to B2, UB2, B3, we don't require restrooms there. And so...
Well, I didn't object to the restrooms. My concern was with the things that are more ephemeral than restrooms.
Yeah, but I mean,
having restrooms seems like it's part of what's defined as a
yeah, but
food truck
it's the
park.
same kind of argument. It's just the restrooms are the extreme.
Because restrooms are fairly permanent, or they should be. Yes. Whereas a manager could be temporary. You know,
We don't require permanent restrooms in UB2 zone.
right, but you would require it in this particular food truck
But
ordinance.
if you did a
That's
food truck
fine.
park in the UB2 zone, it
That's-
would require a restroom. So
Yeah,
it's
but that's-
unique to this
that's-
particular use.
But that's fine for this use, but a manager is not a land use. You know?
It's unique to food truck parks.
Well, it's, you know, restrooms may be unique to food truck parks. I think they're probably required in some other kinds of uses, but not necessarily by zoning. But nothing,
We think they're required and not porta potties.
yeah, but a manager, a human being on site is not really part of the land use. You know, how are we going to enforce that as part of the zoning?
Allow them to put a food truck arrangement there if they don't meet this requirement.
Well, we can discuss,
Yeah, we'll
we
do
can
this
discuss
later.
this in the public hearing on next reading. Mr. Hammond?
Real quick question. I know that we had a food truck, maybe it wasn't called a park, but we did have a food trucks parking. And then we had issues, I think, with some of those food trucks. And then we ended up having to end that, and then we caught quite a bit of flack for that. How is this related, and is this related to wherever those food trucks were gathering? Because I wasn't sure where that is. And then also, does this address, and maybe you may be looking to do that with the code, but does this address any of the concerns that were actually elevated from that particular incident?
As I said, this zoning is about the place and not the food trucks. Tammy's office has been working on an update of our food truck ordinances for the city that would regulate some of the things that you were referring to. So this would be saying this type of activity as a permanent business, not a pop-up event that's once a week or for a festival or whatever, has to have certain requirements for it to be approved. It almost, if you think like a restaurant, or we said a food court, just external instead of internal to a building, these are the things that are required for it to be allowed in a certain location as an ongoing business.
Okay. What's the expected, I know you're looking for some subsequent code companion to this. What's the timeline on that? Because you do have somebody who's interested, and we're looking at this. When is this companion code expected?
For June. Now, if City Council has a special meeting, or if you are agreeable to hearing something along with first reading of the budget, then we could honestly put them on second reading together. It just sort of depends on how receptive you are to wanting to move those truly to be at the exact same time. We could make it happen through that you already have scheduled that is really not intended for that purpose.
Okay, so.
Because you have some budget meetings coming up.
Gotcha. So the idea is next month, possibly?
Yes, with second reading.
Okay. Is there a particular reason why we're looking to have this? So like Councilwoman Smith and I'm in agreement with, it'd be nice to see this alongside that possibly. Would there be an adverse impact to the overall timeline of either yourself or the individual if we were to kind of wait and bring this together? I mean, I'm okay and I'll support it if the team wants to move forward with it.
Right.
But I'm just trying to get a sense of why is this coming this month when the companion piece, which would be helpful to have,
Right.
is only coming 1 month later.
Right. So the companion piece would be for the permit process that the food trucks would have to go through. This one is just for the land use. So does it make sense for them to go together? Absolutely. The reason we move forward with this one is because the person who was interested in it is under a timed contract to purchase the property. So we're trying to accommodate her schedule so that she knows, is this something that the city council is receptive to, for her
Gotcha.
to know whether or not she should move forward.
Thank you. That helps me
You're
with why moving forward with the land piece while
And-
we're waiting on that.
Yeah, and Jennifer and I have sat down with her and we've talked to her about what the schedule would be and the earliest that we could make things happen. And we told her we'd move things forward as quickly as we could.
I got you. So essentially the vote is an expression of our commitment, at least to the, thank you.
Yes,
That makes
because
sense.
it would take some time, obviously, for someone to create a food truck park.
Right.
Because there's be some construction along with that. And then the permit process is just essentially kind of what the city is doing now for permits.
Okay.
Probably placing a fee on that because it is an administrative cost, but we're waiting to see what happened at the state level.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, other comments?
Yeah, one comment.
Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, an example, Councilman Hammond, of taking advantage of the mistakes that were made the first time we had tried to have the food truck rallies, number E, where we said that each food truck must still meet the requirements of the Fire Prevention Office. You know, and that was directly connected with the other one.
Okay. All right. All right, so the motion is to approve on first reading. There will be a second reading, obviously, and at that time, we'll have public hearing before the second reading. So all those in favor of approval on first reading indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? There are none, and it is approved on first reading. Next item of business, Madam Clerk.
A resolution approving the second and final 2-year renewal option for the electric department's vegetation management, tree trimming and pruning contract with W.A. Kendall and Company LLC in an amount not to exceed $2,529,000.54.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Bai, comments?
Mayor and Council, the resolution in front of you is a consideration for the renewal for the second and last time for our tree trimming contract with the W.A. Kendall and Company LLC. Back in 2019, after going through a competitive bidding process, Council approved for the city to enter in a contract with W.A. Kendall for a tree trimming contract for 2 years and up to 2 additional renewal as long as they're performing appropriately. And up to date, the contractors have been fulfilling their part of the contract satisfactorily, and we would like to go ahead and renew it for the second and last time starting July 1st for 2 years, after which time we would go out for a bidding process.
Mr. Hensley.
Yeah, in reading through the resolution, I saw a comment in there, I'm trying to find it, about the previous contract was with the parent company. Is W.A. Kendall, is Seelbach and Company the parent company to W.A. Kendall? Is that correct?
It's the other way around.
Okay. Either way, I'm just wondering, because I saw the comment, but I couldn't figure out which was which.
Correct.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll be on the board. The motion is to approve the resolution. Ayes 7, no nays. The resolution is approved. Oh, okay. I was looking at the votes. All right, next resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution approving a professional services agreement with Kimley Horn and Associates Incorporated, Nashville, Tennessee, to develop conceptual designs for the renovation of the Oak Ridge outdoor pool in the amount of $55,200.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Hedrick?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a topic that we've been discussing for a number of years now. The Oak Ridge Pool is near and dear to the hearts of Oak Ridgers and a part of our history. Last renovated about 30 years ago. It's now reaching the end of its design life. We've seen this coming for a while with various projects we've done to make major repairs, but it's now time to look at a more thorough renovation of the pool. So this is a contract with Kimley Horn. We did a request for qualifications, and received 5 proposals. We interviewed the top 3 firms, and we are recommending Kimley Horn and their subcontractor, Councilman Hunsaker, to do the work. They previously partnered in 2016 to do a study on the pool when we were first really becoming concerned about conditions and the potential life for the pool. And now we think that they are very well equipped to help us move forward and move this project ahead and bring a newly renovated pool to the community.
Questions for Mr. Hedrick? Ms. Smith?
Yeah, the plan is for Kimley Horn to work with city staff on this project. It's clearly not their job alone. And one of the main elements that I perceive needs to be dealt with is public involvement in discussion of this. And clearly that's largely in your bailiwick with Kimley Horn supporting you. Is there a plan for the public involvement process?
Yes, it's loosely outlined in the proposal that was provided with the agenda packet. Essentially, there will be a kickoff meeting and then some additional public input meetings to try to gather information. And they're looking at potentially doing another survey. We did a survey last year in-house with staff and our contractor for surveys. And we would look at gaining additional information, additional input. Then Kimley Horn would come back, and the idea is that they would provide 3 conceptual plans based on the input that they receive, what we've gathered so far and what they receive at the new public input sessions. They would present 3 plans. They would attach dollar figures to those plans, which is not something we've done to this point. And then based on the input that we receive after those are presented publicly to council and to the community, they would then come up with a final conceptual plan. And assuming the city council accepts that final conceptual plan, then we would look to move forward to the construction drawings in that phase of the project.
It appeared to me that there's basically just one public meeting plan that Kimley Horn would support.
No, there's a kickoff meeting and then a design workshop, which is a one-day in-person design workshop with staff, stakeholders, and a public meeting, and then looking at a survey, and then again, once conceptual plans are developed, there will be more opportunities for public input on those conceptual plans, so that we can.
And there'd be engagement with the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, I hope we're budgeting enough for the public engagement that's needed.
Yeah, the public engagement doesn't have to necessarily be very expensive. I think that's something that we can do with our current budget. The key is really getting the word out to people and getting people to show up and attend and provide their input. Another facet of this is that Kimley Horn will help us to develop a website for the project so that we can help to use that to communicate to the community also.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dodson.
Yeah, Mr. Hedrick, this is a quick question, just to make sure we get this on the record. Will this current plan involve building on the same site? I know the site has been the major concern for most of us with regard to losing water from the larger pool.
The intent is to go back with the same site. We had discussed moving, but quite frankly, there really isn't another good option centrally located in town. We've done some geotechnical work and identified some areas that need to probably be addressed. Part of this process will include engaging another geotechnical study, more in depth. The intent would be that we'll engage with the same company that did the first one and have them do a more in-depth study based on what Kimley Horn and Councilman Hunsaker feel that they need, so that those issues can be addressed as we go through the rebuild process. I think the consensus on what we've seen is that we can reuse that site. We just need to address the concerns primarily related to groundwater in the spring.
Thank you, Mr. Hedrick.
Mr. Tinsley.
The only concern I have, John, is that it looks like that if we approve this, $55,200, they're going to come up with alternative designs. But it looks like that gives them a lock on the rest of the design. Is that correct? Are we going to have comparisons to make sure that I don't want to use the wrong term, that the estimate is competitive when we get the big number?
The intent is that they're giving us a proper engineering estimate based on their professional knowledge of doing a project. The reason that it is currently $55,000 for the conceptual part is that we really don't know what the will of the community and the city council will be in terms of actually funding this project. It could be a $5 million project, it could be a $20 million project. Do we want to pool just like very similar to what we have? Do we want to add water slides or a splash pad? The actual project could change greatly depending on the community input and the will of city council. So they can't really properly estimate what their fees will be for that phase of the project until we come up with an acceptable conceptual plan.
Well, I'm a great fan of the outdoor pool, the big outdoor pool. I just want to make sure that we get it hopefully replaced or built up or corrected for competitive cost.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Mr. Hammond?
Quick question. Any thoughts on the timeline of this particular aspect of the project? I see the cost. Is there any sense of roughly how long this project may take?
Again, it depends a little bit on how long it takes to do the community input part of it, but the intent is to begin, assuming the project is approved, or the contract is approved, the intent would be to begin next month in June with the first kickoff meeting, and then to try to move forward as quickly as possible. But I would say it could easily be 12 to 18 months to really get through the full conceptual design. With a little luck, maybe it will go a little more quickly. But I know based on what we've done already in terms of public input, there are a lot of different perceptions about the best direction to go in, and it's going to take some time to suss through that and determine the best path forward for the community.
Okay, so from the point we sign off on this, essentially we're looking at could be up to 12 to 18 months before we actually got something that we're saying, do we want to fund this and that kind of stuff.
Potentially, hopefully sooner, but I don't want to underestimate it.
No, I can appreciate that. So also, as you're developing this and projecting out, let's say whether it's 12 to 18 months or whatever that is, having a project that will have some sense of how much it may cost and that kind of stuff, do you have this lined up in, let's say, the capital kind of budgets, or any thoughts on how this kind of may be funded at that particular point? And the reason why I'm asking is because if we're developing conceptual designs, we're getting the community involved, people are looking at this, and now we've got some design at some point that it may be very difficult to say we can't do it, or we hadn't funded that. So what are your thoughts in terms of funding what we end up conceptually developing so that we can manage expectations appropriately?
We currently have about $5 million in the capital improvement program that is planned for this project, about $500,000 for design total, and then another $4.5 million for construction. That is really, in some regards, a placeholder, since we really don't know what the scope of the project is going to be, but it's been there in the CIP for a few years now, with the intent that that number may need to change based on what, again, the will of the community is. The other thing that we'll look at as we get into this process is what other funding sources are available besides just the city general fund. Do we have other grants or other opportunities that we might be able to take advantage of to help fund this project?
Gotcha. So $5 million has been designated for this project that we're talking about in the capital improvements.
Yes, sir.
Plan. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the consulting contract, and we're on the board.